Right now on Morning News Now, a Supreme Court stunner that's paving the way for another Trump administration power play. The High Court giving the green light to the White House's previously blocked plans of carrying out mass layoffs at the Department of Education. It all comes as the commander-in-chief slaps Russia's Vladimir Putin with a critical ultimatum. Stop the violence in Ukraine or face the possibility of steep economic tariffs. We'll bring you the latest from Washington. Also this morning, a devastating split screen of wild weather wreaking havoc on millions across the Southwest. In Arizona, firefighters racing to contain a pair of massive wildfires that are torching the Grand Canyon, forcing hundreds to evacuate. While in waterlogged Texas, heavy rains return as officials there defend their response to those catastrophic July 4th floods that have so far taken nearly 130 lives. We are covering it all. Plus, the startling rise in nicotine poisonings that are plaguing toddlers from coast to coast. What doctors say parents need to know this morning to help those increasingly popular pouches stay out of the wrong hands. And batter up, the hot new tech taking the baseball world by storm that could soon make those heated back and forths over balls and strikes a thing of the past.
I like you on the sports beat. I'm not going to lie. I feel like we've been doing a lot of this recently.
Get out of here.
You are a sporty girl, after all.
Oh, yeah, when it's written for me and you edit
Just
it.
saying. I'm Sam Brock, in for Joe this morning.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thank you for being with us, Sam, and thank you at home for joining us. We're going to begin this Tuesday morning with the growing frustration between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is over the war in Ukraine.
Right. So Mr. Trump now giving Vladimir Putin a deadline in Russia, 50 days to agree to a ceasefire to end its more than 3-year-long invasion of Ukraine or potentially face steep economic sanctions. After previously touting his good relationship with the Russian president, Trump now says he is fed up with the Russian counterpart, claiming that he is all talk, no results. This all comes after Mr. Trump announced the U.S. would be sending Ukraine Patriot air defense missiles to help it fend off attacks from Russia. NBC News correspondent Alice Barr joining us live from Washington this morning. A lot to cover, Alice. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam and Savannah. President Trump is really making a sharp reversal in his approach here. After long criticizing Ukraine's president, Russian President Putin is increasingly the target of his frustration and now of new promised action. As Russian attacks on Ukraine have only increased, so has President Trump's frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
We want to see it end, and I'm disappointed in President Putin.
Sitting alongside NATO's Secretary General, President Trump announcing plans to rearm Ukraine with billions of dollars worth of weapons, including Patriot air defense systems made in the U.S. and sold to NATO allies in Europe to then hand over to Ukraine.
We're going to make top-of-the-line weapons, and they'll be sent to NATO. We're going to have some come very soon, within days, actually.
The president also setting a 50-day deadline for Russia to agree to a ceasefire or face steep sanctions on trading partners who buy Russian oil and other exports in a move designed to isolate and cripple the Russian economy.
We're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple, and they'll be at 100%.
President Trump also endorsing a bipartisan Russian sanctions bill, though he said it may not be necessary. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanking President Trump for his support. The shifting posture, a major change for a president who's long touted his relationship with Putin and promised to end the war his first day in office.
All talk, and then missiles go into Kiev and kill 60 people. It's got to stop.
President Trump now backing words with weapons in a push to change the tide of a grinding war. And in domestic news, the Supreme Court handed the Trump administration another win, allowing mass layoffs at the Department of Education to move forward. A federal judge had ruled the White House needed approval from Congress to effectively dismantle the department, but the Supreme Court granted an emergency application blocking that lower order. Savannah and Sam.
Yeah, that could be a very consequential ruling. Alice, thank you.
Thanks, Alice. Well, NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos joins us now for more on the Supreme Court's decision here. Danny, good morning. So I want to read a little bit of something here. This is from liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor when she wrote this dissenting opinion. She says, when the executive publicly announces its intent to break the laws for the president and then executes on that promise, it is the judiciary's duty to check that lawlessness not expedite it. Now, this is what's called a shadow docket case, so it means there were no arguments, there's no majority opinion, but we do have this. Walk us through this order and what we know from the justices.
Well, in a way, we don't know a whole lot because the majority opinion, you were just reading from the dissent, the majority opinion is really only a paragraph, which is an additional criticism of these decisions by the majority Supreme Court when they issue just a short, terse order without a lot of explanation. So you really get more information from the dissent. And this is becoming a recurring theme. The Trump administration interprets the court's role as not being able to infringe on decision-making that they see as solely within the province of the federal government. But for literally centuries now, it has been the role of the courts to tell the other branches of government, specifically the executive branch, when they do things unlawfully and to stop them. I mean, that's one of the core functions of the checks and balances. So really what we have here is the Trump administration taking a position that the courts can never intrude on the executive branch, which is sometimes true. It's just not always true.
Do we know how much any of the justices got into the appropriation aspect of this, Danny? The fact that it's Congress that has the power of the purse strings and yet you have the executive branch trying to dismantle the Department of Education. And then also, I would pivot to the fact that the coalition of groups filing this lawsuit against the administration called it devastating yesterday to public education. So what are their options at this point?
Yeah, I would say you just now said more words than the majority opinion had in their majority opinion.
I try to
because
be
all they
loquacious.
really did was recite the procedural history. But here's the other thing to consider is that, as is often the case in the Trump administration, right now we're not talking about final disposition. This is not an adjudication on the merits. In fact, what makes this so confusing is that this is essentially a pause of an earlier pause of an executive order. So it's really a stay of a stay of a stay. And all these courts are doing are deciding what is going to happen in the interim until this is actually adjudicated on the merits. So this isn't really even a final decision on the substantive issues. Instead, it's just a pause of a pause. And we're going to find out ultimately when this is decided on the merits. So maybe that is some consolation, at least for the dissent. It's only a temporary measure.
Danny, also, we've got this group of Democratic state attorneys general. They're now suing the Trump administration. This is for withholding $6 billion of funding from the Department of Education to get ready for the school year. What can you tell us about that suit? And for people who are just hearing us talk about, you know, the words dismantling, withholding this funding for the Department of Education, is there anything parents should know right now?
Yeah, this is a similar theme in that the lawsuit alleges that the Trump administration is violating the law by not spending the money that is required in both regulations and money that Congress has appropriated. And the administration, on the other hand, is going to take the position, although this is a lawsuit that was just filed, they will certainly take the position that we're the executive branch. Those regulations are our regulations, and we can do with, if we're given this money, we can see where it gets spent. That might be a difficult argument to make because when Congress appropriates funds, presumably they have to be spent. The plaintiffs here are arguing, number one, the Administrative Procedure Act, which we hear about all the time in the Trump administration, essentially that the executive branch can't do something unless it shows its work. You remember in school, you couldn't just write the correct answer to the math problem. You had to show your work. The problem with these challenges is that it allows the administration to basically say, oh, well, we didn't do it right this time. It's basically back to the drawing board, and they might be able to do it again if they provide the appropriate justification. So these challenges are always an uphill battle for the plaintiffs, but we see it a lot in the Trump administration because of the speed at which executive orders and other decisions are pushed out into the ether.
Yeah, breakneck speed.
Yeah, for real. Danny Ceballos, thanks so much.
All right, we continue now with what is definitely going to be a busy day in Washington.
Yeah, that's right. Later on Capitol Hill, Mike Waltz will face a Senate confirmation hearing for his nomination as President Trump's ambassador to the UN. Notably, though, you might remember this is going to mark the first time that Waltz is going to take questions from Congress since he was ousted as National Security Advisor in May. You might remember he lost that role after he took responsibility for adding a journalist to this private signal chat among national security leaders of the Trump administration that shared sensitive military plans.
NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joining us now from Washington with more on this. Ryan, good morning. Let's start with what kind of questions Waltz is expected to be facing today.
This is going to be a grilling, Sam. Democrats in Congress feel that they have not gotten the entire story as it relates to that controversy over Signalgate, where Mike Waltz brought together a group of administration officials on an unsecure chat to talk about an attack that was going to take place in Yemen, and added a journalist as part of that chat. Waltz was essentially pushed out of the Trump administration's inner circle as national security advisor and then given this quote-unquote promotion to UN ambassador. In order to get the UN ambassador job, he's got to go through Senate confirmation, which requires this hearing. So Democrats really are expected to focus on this Signalgate and look for answers to questions that they feel they haven't gotten. Now, even though they're hoping for that, there have been other administration officials that have been before Congress that were on that chat who've been pressed upon this and just really have not given the Democrats the answers they're looking for. Waltz, though, considered to be a central player in all of that. So maybe things will be different during this hearing, which could be fiery later today.
Ryan, do we know about how Waltz is preparing for something like this? I mean, it's a hearing to be the ambassador to the UN, but probably going to be questioned about Signalgate. What's going on with his prep?
Yeah, so he is going to have to come up with some sort of an explanation as to how this Signal chat came together, whether or not he thought that it was secure and the reasons behind it. But the other thing you have to keep in mind is that Waltz is not going to be the only person that's going to be testifying in this hearing. There are two other nominees that are up for different posts in the administration who are also going to be taking questions from both Republicans and Democrats. So it's not as though all the fire will be trained on him the entire time. That will give him moments to take his breath and then move on to other topics. So this will be an interesting process for Waltz, and he's no doubt been through numerous sessions where he's practiced, been hammered with some of the toughest questions with the goal of trying to get through this unscathed so that he can ultimately be confirmed as UN ambassador.
Ryan, can you give us a temperature check on Capitol Hill in terms of how both parties are feeling about this nomination? You mentioned a second ago this was sort of an exit ramp for Waltz after what was a huge deal with Signalgate. How are both parties feeling about this nomination?
Well, there's no doubt that every Democrat is going to vote against it. The issue for Waltz is going to be whether or not he can get 51 Republicans to vote yes for his nomination. And as we've seen with every single Trump nominee, Republicans have not been willing to stand up and tell the president no. Now, there's no doubt that there are numerous Senate Republicans that are probably uncomfortable with putting Waltz in this position because of what happened in the Signalgate controversy. But at this point, we've seen no indication that there's enough Republicans that are willing to stand up and say, we are not going to vote yes on this nominee. So it is likely that Waltz will be the next UN ambassador.
Ryan, also something else we're watching, keeping an eye on today on the Hill. This is from the House Education and Workforce Committee on Anti-Semitism in Higher Education. This has been a big conversation over the last year. What more can you tell us we might see today?
Yeah, so this House committee is going to bring a group of leaders from different institutions. Georgetown, Cal Berkeley will be there, the chancellor of that university. And they're going to be facing very similar questions to what we saw from the leaders of Harvard, from Columbia, from Penn, where they're going to be questioned about the efforts that they're doing to try and curb anti-Semitism on their campus and what they're going to do to try and prevent this going forward. Now, this has been a very difficult experience for the other leaders of higher education that have been before this committee. Many of them have been pushed out of their jobs as a result of how they answered questions in this hearing. This is something that House Republicans in particular are very focused on, and we're going to see that on display here again today on Capitol Hill. The benefit that these administrators have is that they've seen this process play out before with their colleagues, so they should come with a bit more preparation in terms of what the questions that they could face. But make no mistake, House Republicans are not going to let them off the hook when it comes to this issue.
Ryan Noble's covering a lot of ground for us from D.C. today. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, guys.
We are learning new details this morning about that deadly fire at an assisted living facility in Massachusetts on Sunday. At least 9 people were killed and dozens more injured from the fire that caused elderly residents to need to be rescued out of second-story windows. Now officials are trying to get to the bottom of how it started. NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda has the latest.
Dramatic rescues at a senior living facility where a fire tore through late Sunday, killing 9 people between 61 and 86 years old.
Be advised, we have a victim on the 3rd floor.
Firefighters squeezing residents through windows and carrying them down ladders at the Gabriel House in Fall River, Massachusetts.
All the smoke from the hall went right in my face, and all what I could do was just stand there and choke.
Residents' desperation worsened by physical limitations. So many pulled from windows, relying on oxygen tanks, wheelchairs, and walkers. 71-year-old Lorraine Ferreira says when she opened her door, smoke engulfed her room.
What was going through your mind when you realized you couldn't reach the exit?
That I was going to die, and I was breathing in the smoke, and I just knew I was not going to make it.
After screaming for help, a firefighter was able to break her second-floor bathroom window.
What would you want to say to that firefighter?
I'd want to say I love you, and you'll always be in my prayers. And thank you so much for saving my life.
Ambulance after ambulance transported around 30 people to local hospitals. One person, according to authorities, remains in critical condition.
Do you have any other medical units available? Negative.
There were more rescues out of this building last night than there have been in the 23 years that I've been a firefighter.
Investigators saying the cause of the fire does not appear to be suspicious, but some residents are raising concerns about the condition of the facility. The owner of Gabriel House did not respond to our request for comment. Fire officials say he is cooperating as the city's mayor promises a thorough investigation.
What was the staffing like at the facility? What were the fire detectors working like? What were the sprinklers like?
As a heartbroken community remembers the lives lost.
I'm just happy that I got to talk to him. Sad. Sorry. It's just sad.
And firefighters describing the complicated nature of these rescues. There were AC units blocking the largest windows and escape points. Also, the firefighter union saying that if they had been adequately staffed, more lives could have been saved. Wow. Back to you.
Oh, Emily, thank you. Just heartbreaking.
It sure is. Thousands of miles away in Arizona now, firefighters still struggling to try to gain control over 2 wildfires that are burning at the Grand Canyon that have forced right now hundreds of thousands of people to evacuate after destroying dozens of structures. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson is joining us now from the South Rim with the very latest. Steve, when we talked to you yesterday, thankfully, no fatalities, no injuries. Is that still the case? And what does it look like right now on the ground?
Yeah, thankfully that still holds, but a very, very active firefight. As you mentioned, these fires still burning out of control. 0% containment. The larger fire sort of burning a little bit outside of the park, now nearing 50,000 acres. The smaller but more dangerous fire, still 5,700 acres, destroyed 50 to 80 buildings there on the North Rim. I was in the South Rim last night, Sam. The smoke wafted over the entire canyon. It was raining down ash on people, and this is a fire that is burning on the other side of the canyon on the North Rim. Shows you just how hard they're fighting this fire and just how much smoke is billowing across the entirety of the Grand Canyon, guys.
And Steve, any idea how these fires started?
Yeah, we do know. Lightning strikes in both cases. There was some sort of discrepancy on how the fires were managed. Of course, managed originally by federal managers. They kind of let it burn a little bit, especially that smaller fire. Some discrepancy on whether or not that led to winds pushing it into those structures, and then the burning that we saw as you're looking at on screen. Guys.
It's stunning images. Steve, obviously Grand Canyon is a national treasure, but also this whole ecosystem of jobs, right, and tourism. What are you hearing from the people that are impacted by the fire in all these different areas?
Yeah, you know, it's important to remember, Sam, that people live there, especially park officials, these park rangers that spend their lives essentially at these national parks, especially there on the North Rim. There were about 50 people that were evacuated essentially from their homes, had to leave everything behind. I spoke to park officials about what the loss is like. Here's what they told me.
Yeah, it has been a try for everyone. We had approximately 50 employees who were evacuated from the North Rim this last weekend, and the loss is devastating. We not only lost the Grand Canyon Lodge, but we lost a lot of our employee housing.
And of course, this is all happening during peak visiting season. That North Rim now shut down for the entirety of the rest of the season. Only about 10% of folks visit the North Rim. South Rim, of course, much more popular, but it still all feeds into the local economy, and it will take a hit from this. Guys?
We just heard mention there, and viewers might have been seeing pictures of this Grand Canyon Lodge that's burned down. We've heard a lot about this building, its significance, its history. For somebody who maybe hasn't seen it or maybe hasn't been to the Grand Canyon at all, just walk us through this special place and just how much of a loss this is.
Yeah, the before and after pictures, stunning. This structure built in the 1920s. It actually burned down in, I think, 1932, then rebuilt in that stone that you're seeing there. But it's incredibly significant, not only for its age, but it's sort of like the gateway to the north, right? It's the oasis of people that stay there. The North Rim, very remote. Again, only about 10% of the population visits that part of the park. But for people that do, it's the only lodging that's there. So it's very important, very vital for people that are passing through, and of course very historic for the entirety of the park system.
Steve, lastly, what type of conditions are you looking at today, right? I mean, we've been following the rain in Texas, making recovery efforts so much more difficult there. With the firefighting on both the South and North Rim, what are you seeing right now, and what are the predictions in terms of weather conditions?
Every day it's been 100+ degree heat. I think today we're going to get maybe a little bit more of a break, but we're still looking at another heat alert. This, of course, exacerbates the situation. Still strong winds, very dry conditions, really tough for a firefight, especially when you're talking about one in a 6 million year old canyon where you have clear vertical cliff faces. Very difficult to fight this fire. The weather not helping at all, Sam. Savannah.
All right, Steve, fantastic reporting there. By the way, Steve, how have evacuations been going just quickly? Has it been smooth getting people out of all these areas?
It's the one thing that we can count on to say, thankfully, nobody hurt, nobody injured, nobody killed. Evacuations, very smooth. People heeding the warnings and getting out when they need to get out. Savannah.
Steve, thank you so much. Great reporting.
In the meantime, here, intense rain overnight. There were geysers popping out of New York City subway stations, bringing some flash flooding to New York. Look at that. Right? Look at the turnstiles. The water's almost up there, turning the subway into an underground river. Parts of Texas, by the way, as we mentioned, still under threat this morning from more heavy rain expected today.
We have Angie Lastman here on the latest of this forecast that is just wild across the country. Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. We've got some improvement across parts of the Northeast. Yes, we did receive really an incredible amount of rain in a very short period of time yesterday in New York City, breaking or at least getting to the secondary spot in the records for the hourly rainfall rates seen in New York City on a day. So we had over 2 inches of rain in just 1 hour period. No surprise. The subway systems, of course, can't take that. We've seen some improvements, though, across that region, but we've still got a couple of these flood alerts in place across parts of the mid-Atlantic. You'll notice across the South, specifically Texas, still dealing with some of those flood watches and flash flood warnings at this time. We're going to see some additional rain today, and we're specifically watching this cold front that's going to work across parts of the upper Midwest. Anywhere from that location back to the Rockies is where we'll see some of those stronger storms, potentially leaving us with some hail, some strong wind gusts, and maybe some isolated tornadoes, but also that potential for flash flooding will be there across that area. The system will move to the east tomorrow, and notice how we start to get some of parts of the Northeast back in on the action as far as rain is concerned. This will go for parts of the plains as well, stretching to the central plains, to the northern plains, with the potential, again, for that flood risk. So we've got another couple of days where we could see those impacts. We've also got an area that we're watching just off the coast of Florida, sitting just to the east. That's it's a low pressure right now, but it's fairly unorganized. We've got disorganized showers and thunderstorms associated with it, but we're going to watch over the next basically couple of days for that to develop and become a better organized system as we get into the later parts of this week, as it moves into a more favorable environment over parts of the Gulf of Mexico. Here's what that looks like between now and then. Either way, whether it develops later into the week or not, it's going to bring some heavy rain to parts of Texas here. Rather parts of Florida as we get into the afternoon hours today. Notice central to northern Florida is where the heaviest of that rain will be centered. And that leaves us with, again, that flash flooding possibility. By tomorrow, the system looks to, again, be better organized potentially. And maybe we'll be talking about an organized system by then. But either way, we've got those tropical rain bands that are going to work into parts of Alabama and Louisiana. So we're going to deal with the potential for flash flooding across that region as well. We'll see hourly rainfall rates likely anywhere from 2 to 3 inches. And by the time we get through Thursday, we could see, again, multiple inches of rain, specifically closer to the coast from anywhere from Louisiana back towards the west coast of Florida. So we'll watch for kind of a soggy forecast for folks in that region. Here's the area to watch today when it comes to the severe threat. Winds, hail, a couple of tornadoes possible, and it stretches from really the upper peninsula of Michigan back to parts of the plains, guys. It's a busy kind of forecast. We've also got, of course, the fire threat that we're watching out west as well.
Oh my gosh.
It's hard to keep track of all
Hard
this.
to keep track, yeah.
By the way, we share a New York, South Florida connection.
Yes, we do.
When you get multiple inches of rain in either one of these places, the one commonality here is
Flooding.
it's just sheer chaos.
Yes.
Everywhere that you look.
Transportation becomes a nightmare, and that is exactly what we saw last night.
Those subway videos are crazy.
Really
I can't
crazy.
get over it.
I know.
Yeah.
I really can't either. All right, thanks, Angie.
Well, right now we got much more coming up on this hour of morning news now. That includes what parents should know this morning about a serious rise in nicotine poisonings in some of America's youngest kids.
But first, though, after the break, a close call caught on camera. The Florida neighbors who jumped into action after a plane crashed right next to their homes. These stories and more up next.
Well, we are back with an incredibly close call, all caught on camera. This in a Florida suburb, a plane crashing just north of Miami. It happened on Sunday, narrowly missing the homes there. Now, neighbors jumped into action to rescue the family that was on board that plane. Local officials say that this community has seen an alarming number of crashes in recent years. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello has all the details.
The people who live nearby say it sounded like a semi-truck crashing on their street, plane debris on their front lawns. A small Cessna Skymaster slamming into a tree just after 8 p.m. Immediately, neighbors ran to help. As smoke poured from the plane, one neighbor grabbed a garden hose. Others grabbed an axe and fire extinguisher, working fast to pull the victims out. Meanwhile, fellow pilots radioed air traffic control.
Yeah, there is a downed aircraft here. Looks like shore final 2A left.
NBC 6 in Miami reports 4 people were on board, including members of a family, all with minor injuries.
There's a blessing in this that nobody was killed, and that's primarily because the plane didn't blow up.
FlightAware shows the plane had spent more than 3 hours flying from the Turks and Caicos to the North Perry Airport in Pembroke Pines, Florida, where it crashed short of the runway. The mayor of Pembroke Pines, Florida, says there have been more than 35 crashes over the past 5 years involving that airport. He's now calling on Broward County to launch a full investigation. Back to you.
Only minor injuries there, Tom. Thank you.
Really incredible. Let's turn now to some developing news out of Indonesia. Local search and rescue officials say several people are missing after a boat capsized off the western coast.
So NBC News international correspondent Claudia Lavanga joining us now with more on that rescue effort, Claudia, and other world news in 60 seconds. Good morning.
Sam Samana, good morning. Well, that's right. The search is underway for several people went missing after the boat capsized off the coast of Indonesia on Monday morning. Now, Indonesia's National Search and Rescue Agency says the boat was carrying 18 people when it sunk due to bad weather off the coast of Mentawai Islands. So far, officials say the teams have rescued at least 11, but the hope to find the rest of the missing alive is diminishing by the hour. Let's go now to Spain, where 10 people were arrested after 3 nights of clashes between far-right groups and North African migrants. The unrest started on Sunday in the town of Torre Pacheco in the south of Spain after a man in his 60s said he was attacked by 2 foreigners. And let's end this 60 seconds around the world at a zoo in Germany, where 4 Siberian tiger cubs made their social media debut. The cubs were born in May this year, and on Monday, they underwent their first veterinary examination and their first photo shoot. By the look of it, they're all healthy and incredibly cute. But don't be fooled, guys. According to the zoo's website, Siberian tigers are the largest feline predators in the world, so zookeepers are not going to be able to cuddle them so sweetly for that long, I presume.
They are
Back to
really
you guys.
cute, though, at this stage.
Lest we forget, they're tigers.
Yeah.
Thank you, Claudia.
I wonder what age they go from that to, okay,
Quickly.
scary. Yeah. Thanks, Claudia. Well, coming up, a pretty concerning health alert for parents on this Tuesday morning.
Yeah, so after the break, why cases of nicotine poisonings are skyrocketing in young children and how users of these popular pouches can keep products out of the wrong hands at home. That's next on Morning News Now.
We are back with our weekly mental health check-in, and this week we are diving into a major review of over-the-counter supplements and how researchers found a few that show real promise in helping ease depression.
Plus, something, speaking of which, that a lot of people can relate to, financial therapy is shedding light on how our relationship with money can actually reveal much deeper emotional struggles.
Joining us now to break down this week's mental health headlines is Dr. Scott Lyons. He is a psychologist and the CEO of the Embody Lab. Dr. Lyons, it's great to have you back with us. Good morning. Thank you for your time. Let's start with this new analysis. This is out of the UK, and it's on over-the-counter supplements for depression, which I'll be honest, I didn't know was such a market. Strange. Yeah, and it seems maybe like it could be concerning, right, if a doctor is not prescribing you something specific for your symptoms and for your sort of body composition, chemical makeup. But there are a lot of these available, and researchers found that some are more effective than others. What do you want someone to know who might want to try these supplements? How can you do it safely and effectively?
Yeah, great question. So there are supplements that are showing promise, like St. John's wort, saffron, vitamin D, probiotics. And while some supplements might help with depression, it's because they're working on things like inflammation, gut-brain axis, neurotransmitter support. But that's just one layer of depression. And why the results might vary is because depression is not a one-size-fits-all. So a supplement that might help one person may not be so supportive for someone else. And we're really talking about needing to look at the quality of the supplement, as well as I highly recommend getting tested by doctors, like a functional medicine doctor, to really assess what is needed to support each individual's depression and what else can be supported, like therapy, to be brought in to help these individuals.
Yeah, it feels like having that conversation with a physician as well would be pretty important in that. Next, we're also looking at the rise of financial therapists, professionals who help people unpack not just their budgets, but their emotions surrounding money. Obviously, many Americans have a significant amount of debt. How can talking about money get to your deeper core issues?
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I have known a lot of people who have emotions and feelings around money. I mean, we have therapists that specialize in things like intimacy, so it makes a lot of sense to have therapists that specialize around finance. And the big picture idea is that money is never just about money. It's a mirror. It's a mirror showing us how our experiences are around our safety, our worth, our lineage, and our wounds. And that's a really important thing to recognize when we're navigating the realm of money. I've worked with a lot of people, high performers, CEO, creators, therapists, and what I see again and again is that financial freedom is not just about how much money you have, it's about how safe you feel when you have it or don't.
That's such a good point. Okay, finally, Doctor, we talk a lot on this show and during this segment about how effective getting out in nature can be for your mental health. We've really done a lot of segments on this. And this is so interesting to me, and I'm super skeptical of it, to be honest. This is this new study that shows that an indoor version with the help of a VR headset can also work. One of the ways of doing this is called virtual forest bathing. I don't know. I mean, I feel like introducing tech when the whole point is kind of like getting out of the tech and there's still sort of whatever can be going on with the screen right in your face. I kind of get it, I guess. Like, oh, it feels like you're outside because those can be really realistic. But what do you think here, Doctor?
I was pretty skeptical, too. And honestly, when I first heard about forest bathing, I was like, wait, you go to the forest and you take a bath. And that's not actually what it is. It's a Japanese therapeutic practice that's rooted in multisensory and immersion. It's like get really the smells, the sound, the touch of the forest.
Go barefoot, yeah.
Yeah, go barefoot. And so like VR, how could that possibly work? And the VR studies on this was about the visual. So you're in the forest, but you're also smelling, some smells that remind you of the forest. And the research did show that it did reduce some levels of cortisol. It helped with blood pressure and reduced heart rate. And it did boost the mood. So, I say whatever works. Obviously, nature is the gold standard here.
Right.
And VR can be a runner-up.
All right. Love it.
When you don't have a sprawling forest
when
near
we don't
you,
have access.
just throw on a VR headset.
That's good for us city folk. Yeah. Dr. Scott Lyons, great to see you. Thank you very much.
Great to see you.
Well, a new study from the American Academy of Pediatrics reveals that the number of young kids getting sick after ingesting nicotine products like pouches or vape liquids, we were talking about this earlier, Savannah, has skyrocketed in the last 15 years.
Yeah, kind of hard to believe. Well, U.S. Poison Centers reported more than 130,000 cases of nicotine poisoning. Get this, so this is among kids under the age of 6. from 2010 to 2023. That same study, it also showed the rate of poisonings that involved nicotine pouches specifically went up an astonishing 763% in just 3 years.
That is stunning. NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel joining us now. We always appreciate your expertise, Dr. Patel. So this research shows that the startling rise in poisonings comes as we're seeing a surge in sales of nicotine pouches. Is it the availability? I mean, you have yearly sales that went from more than $700,000 in 2016 to $216 million by the middle of 2020. What is different about these pouches compared to other forms of nicotine, and are they more harmful?
Yeah, Sam, Savannah, very important topic. So you're absolutely right to kind of highlight the trend and increase sales. But really what's dangerous, and I think why it's appealing to so many young children, they're these small white pouches that almost look like those slender sticks of candy or gum.
Yes.
They get placed between the gum and the lip, and they contain concentrated amounts of nicotine in varying amounts. And they can be very dangerous to kids and adults because of that attractiveness, the way they look. They can come in flavors, and they can have both short and long-term effects on the body.
I think it's also so important to point out here, like what we're talking about is actually just little children getting their hands on something that they shouldn't, which is to say nothing of the issue of these types of products being appealing to, let's say, teenagers who are purposely using these products, which is also skyrocketing and a different kind of problem. And when we're talking about these babies, the majority of these poisonings, they happen with babies and toddlers that are under 2 years old. I mean, that is just crazy. And tell us, because the danger here is that it's much more toxic for kids than adults, right? How seriously can it impact them?
That's right. It's not just that, you know, the babies have like an ability with that same amount of nicotine to have more widespread concentration in their blood because they're smaller, but they can also have much more of a strong effect on their brain, leading to seizures. That's why you do see in these cases of poisoning, some of the most common symptoms initially are nausea, vomiting, a rapid heart rate. Babies' heart rates at a baseline are more rapid than adults, but we're talking in the 200s, and then seizures. And of course, unfortunately, all the counter effects of that. And it's really what you just said, Savannah. They just this is an age where they just put things in their mouth. They'll put anything in their mouth, and especially if something that looks small enough to put in their mouth, and an adult might not realize it's in their mouth, and that can prolong the exposure to the nicotine.
What are the simple steps, Dr. Patel, that parents can take then, right? If we're going to plug up electrical sockets to make sure kids aren't playing around with that, what are what's the analogous thing you can do here to make sure that these pouches are out of the reach of kids?
All right, Sam, just bear with me for a moment. This is what I had to do as the mom. I actually got on my knees and kind of walked around trying to enact like the height of a toddler or a baby that's crawling and can hold themselves up. And I kind of swept around anything. You know, you're right. We focus on sockets, very important. We focus on hard corners. I started to realize, my goodness, I'm keeping little objects by the bedside, and I didn't even think about it. And then drawers and pulls. That same vigilance with where you keep any products, and this applies to what we're talking about, nicotine patches, as well all the way up to any type of cigarette, e-cigarettes included. And what I'll say is that if you've got a family with widespread ages, you might have a teenager that you don't even are not aware that they might be using this, have that conversation about any exposure that child can provide to a younger child. So get on your knees, do a sweep of some of the most common places. And then if you have an older child in the household, just have that it doesn't need to be confrontational. The conversation is more important.
Wow, really good advice there. All right, also, if someone is addicted to nicotine, remind us, how can they find help quitting or find some type of alternative?
Yeah, so I try to tell patients that when you're trying to stop, don't overthink it and not try to set a lofty goal. Some people say that they're stopping, they're going to quit everything right now. You have to kind of meet yourself where you are and determine what's best for you. You can do that, obviously, with a health professional. There are a number of 1-800 numbers that can help with stopping to quit smoke and just give you a plan. I think the most important thing is to find an accountability partner. That can be in the form of something online, that can be in the form of a family member. And I always tell, because most often when you're smoking, even for teenagers, they're doing it in the company of others. The key is to try to make sure, it's like losing weight or doing any new habit, to try to encourage whoever is in your most immediate peer group or in your family to also try to quit, and do it on the path that makes the most sense for you. Trying to do it cold turkey, if that's not what you're ready for, is not a good idea. And that's where we can come and help with what you can do in between.
And just such an important reminder, I think, that these, just because it's not smoking an actual cigarette does not mean that these things are healthy, or that should you never have had that happen in the first place, you should be picking something like this up.
Right. That's
Dr.
right.
Kavita Patel, thank you.
Appreciate you. Up next, keeping our eye on the ball here, some eagle-eyed baseball fans might notice something a bit different in the batter's box during tonight's All-Star game.
That's because a brand new piece of top-of-the-line tech is giving MLB umps a bit of an accuracy boost. But will it steal the show? We'll take a closer look next. Welcome back. We want to return to Texas, where heavy rain is once again threatening to cause even more damage to the region, just 10 days after it was devastated by those catastrophic floods.
It's just been relentless. Flood watches are now in effect across the state of Texas through this afternoon, including cities like Austin and San Antonio. It comes after many were told to move to higher ground again yesterday, now that flooding is more likely due to this nonstop rain that continues to just batter the region. As of this morning, at least 132 have been killed, while more than 100 are still missing, though that number has come down significantly after flash floods tore through Texas communities on July 4th.
We have NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky in Kerrville with the latest. He's been covering this the whole time. Of course, it's his hometown. Morgan, thank you very much for joining us this morning. So let's just talk through what it seems to be happening on the ground. The National Weather Service saying 14 counties were under flood watches as of this morning. Of course, after Central Texas, there were those floods, but then also 6 to 10 inches of rain just over this past weekend. What are you seeing on the ground? How bad is it, and how are people dealing with this additional rain?
Yeah, Savannah, I think you have two situations kind of happening in real time here. You have the aftermath from the July 4th flooding event, which, of course, has forever changed this entire area along the Guadalupe River. And then you have these persistent systems that have dropped a lot of rain over Central Texas, over the hill country, which have to some degree hampered these ongoing search efforts. We know that on Sunday, crews had to pause for the better part of the day simply because the water started rising yet again. And then in other areas across the Texas hill country, we have seen localized flash flooding, certainly nothing even close to the degree of what we witnessed on the 4th of July. Here in Kerrville and Kirk County, we do know that the sheriff has announced that all volunteers, at least until this rain event has fully passed, need to avoid getting close to the river, saying that only the professionals, only the law enforcement agencies should be the ones searching these riverbanks right now, simply because conditions are still too treacherous. Savannah?
So it reduces, Morgan, just the number of people, the sheer volume of those that are able to help. But just, Morgan, can you speak to the ebb and flow? Because it feels like the last 2, 3, 4 days, it's been a constant stop and start of those, trying to continue the search and recovery efforts. How has that disrupted their ability to try and find and help those that are still out there?
Yeah, I think it's kind of been a day-by-day struggle here, because if it's not rain that these crews are dealing with, it's the sheer reality of what they're having to search. We're talking about more than 30 miles of a river through a county, some areas rugged and remote and hard to reach. You couple that with the fact that debris is not just on the riverbanks, but also underneath the water as well. The force of this flood, in some cases, changing portions of the riverbed entirely. And so I think over the past week, everyone was just coming to grips on how tough the search would be. We had, for the first time since this flood event took place, Kirk County commissioners meeting yesterday, and we heard from one county official saying that they would not be surprised if this search effort to get that number missing here in Kirk County, that number sits at 97. They believe it could be 6 months before they believe everyone is either been found or they have completely exhausted their search efforts here.
Wow. Morgan, also, you have been doing these interviews, and one that was really, I think, quite stunning to a lot of people, with officials in the area, including the city manager, sort of about how this could have happened. What information did people get? What urgent warnings did people get? Tell us about what you've been hearing as we continue to ask these questions, look for accountability, and how officials are handling moving forward right now the continued issue of a flood threat.
Yeah, well, Savannah, as far as the continued threat of floods, we do know that there's kind of two answers to that. At the city level, within the city limits of Kerrville, officials such as the city manager can issue what's called a code red. Now, the mother of a friend of mine received a code red email notifying her that there could be the risk of localized flooding in the area. This is sometime over the last several days. So that was received in the form of an email. At the county level, the officials use what's known as iPause, and that is the system that the National Weather Service also uses to let you know, hey, there's a flash flood warning. National Weather Service can warn you about a flood. They can't tell you to evacuate. They can't tell you to shelter in place. That falls on county officials. One county commissioner telling me that the county sheriff and the county judge, they have to coalesce on a message. We still don't know why they did not on July 4th. They said that they're having a action review plan that will study this response in the weeks to come, but they're still very much engaged in trying to find those still missing and mourn those lives lost. But there are a lot of questions here. And fortunately, we don't have the answers we want to at this point in time. Guys.
Morgan,
it is amazing.
It is. And I actually want to play. We have some sound of your interview here asking the city manager about exactly this, these warnings. Let's go ahead and listen to that.
I actually think I have my weather report stuff turned off, if I'm being honest.
I mean, you're the city manager.
No.
Why would you have your weather alerts turned off?
Because one, with my family, with first responders, and again, I'm in it every single day. My phone stays on 24 hours, 7 days a week. We're in constant communication with emergency response. Whether my stuff is on or not is really a moot point because we have teams of experts.
Again, Morgan, just a powerful interview there that shows just a lot of the confusion going on in the area. Thank you so much for your reporting, Morgan.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to make a bit of a shift right now and turn to some money news. President Trump's tariffs on Mexico might drive up the cost of a lot of things, including your tomatoes.
CNBC's Silvana Henao has another money news for us. Hey, Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Sam. Good morning to you. Yeah, well, guess what, guys? The tomatoes in your salad, they're about to get more expensive. The U.S. government is imposing a 17% import tax on most fresh Mexican tomatoes. This after talks ended without a deal to avoid the tariff. Now, supporters say the tax will help rebuild the U.S. tomato industry and ensure products eaten here are also grown here. And Mexico currently supplies about 70% of the U.S. tomato market. Opponents say retail prices will likely rise about 8 to 10% as it will be hard to immediately replace that supply. Meanwhile, Google has signed a $3 billion hydropower deal in the largest clean energy investment of its kind. The company will be able to secure as much as 3 gigawatts of hydropower as big tech looks to expand energy-hungry data centers for their AI ambitions. Now, this deal announced today between Google and Brookfield Asset Management involves power generated from 2 hydroelectric plants in Pennsylvania. Google is expected to discuss the news at an AI summit this afternoon in Pittsburgh, where President Trump will unveil $70 billion in AI and energy investments. And HBO's new Harry Potter TV series will premiere in 2027. Warner Brothers Discovery announcing production has started on the show in the UK, and it is expected to be a faithful adaptation of those beloved books. Now, when the show was first announced in 2023, Warner Brothers said it would be a decade-long series. Harry Potter, which J.K. Rowling is serving as an executive producer on the show, guys.
All right, pretty cool, Silvana.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Silvana.
Coming up, glimmers of hope in the wake of those tragic floods in Texas's Hill Country.
Morning News Now. We'll be right back with more.
Finally, this hour, one summer camp that serves some very special kids is officially back in session in Central Texas. Thanks to a massive effort, it's reopening a little more than a week after those deadly floods.
It's nice to report some uplifting news here. NBC News correspondent Ryan Chandler has the story about the community of volunteers who came together to make it all possible.
Welcome to camp.
After 10 dark days, smiles start to rise above the Guadalupe River. It's these campers' first day back at camp, and spirits are high. In Center Point, Texas, this is a place for those who can't always go to other camps, a refuge for kids and young adults with disabilities. 21-year-old Kenny is a veteran camper.
Welcome back, Kenny. Welcome back.
I'm grateful that I get this opportunity, but at the same time, it's rough knowing everyone else is still suffering.
Parts of the campgrounds were destroyed by those deadly flash floods. More than 1,500 volunteers stepped up, some with shovels, others with chainsaws. The outpouring so large, some were turned away.
It gives you an incredible belief that, yeah, tomorrow can be better than today because there are people out there who will make it so.
This community has a lot of hard tomorrows ahead. But today, camp is open once again.
This river has caused so much pain this week. But as you've seen, it can also be a source of joy.
The most healing and growth often happens after the largest tragedies. Sometimes the darkest storms can bring the largest growth.
After so much heartache, a glimmer of hope. Ryan Chandler, NBC News, Center Point, Texas.
Texas-sized effort there. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us. The news continues right now. Good morning. Thanks for starting your Tuesday with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
And I'm Sam Brock, in for Joe this morning. We've got a lot to get to right now on Morning News Now. Burning out of control as the wildfires in the Grand Canyon spread to nearly 6,000 acres. We're learning new details this morning about why officials allowed it to burn for days before this one exploded in size. Now, Arizona's governor is calling for an investigation into the federal government's handling of that not-so-controlled burn. We have the very latest from the ground. Plus, getting to higher ground. Heavy rain returning to the state of Texas, complicating the recovery from those deadly 4th of July floods. There are new flood alerts today as officials defend their handling of that last disaster. We'll speak with the organization that's helping folks on the ground. And in Washington, more tariff trouble. President Trump defending his 30% tariffs on major U.S. trade partners as the European Union threatens to retaliate. Trump also using his trade policy to pressure Russia, threatening Vladimir Putin with a severe 100% tariff. The ceasefire deal is not struck with Ukraine in the next 49 days. The president remaining hopeful yesterday.
They don't know how to end the war. I think I do know how to end the war. I've always had a good relationship with Putin. And, you know, he wants to end the war.
All of this mounting as questions right now over the Jeffrey Epstein files are fueling fractures in the MAGA movement. And finally, it is the summer of Costco. When is it not the summer of Costco? The retail giant having a major moment as sales spike with Americans looking to save by spending big bucks at the discount retailer. And could a Costco be coming to a city near you? We'll tell you where the new stores are opening later this hour.
I am all about Costco. I'm a proud member.
That warms my heart. I could spend all day in Costco.
I know.
But you probably want to get to real news as well.
That's
so
right.
We'll table that. We start this morning with those massive wildfires burning right now out of control around the Grand Canyon. Savannah, firefighters in Arizona struggling right now to gain control of two wildfires known as the White Sage Fire and the Dragon Bravo Fire, which have collectively burned some 45,000 acres.
The Dragon Bravo fire has destroyed at least 80 structures, including what you're seeing on your screen right here. This is the famous Grand Canyon Lodge. It's also shut down the Grand Canyon's North Rim for the season. Right now, officials are reporting that both fires are 0% contained. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson is at Grand Canyon National Park with the latest.
Yeah, of course, Grand Canyon National Park, third most visited park in the country, very popular, about 5 million annual visitors. Of that, only about 10% visit the North Rim, but it is still a vital part of the park, a vital piece of the economy, which stings even more because it is shut down for the rest of us.
One of America's greatest natural treasures, besieged by flames. Nearly 60,000 acres now burned by the White Sage and Dragon Bravo fires. The Dragon Bravo fire began on July 4th along the canyon's North Rim. Days later, the White Sage fire started 35 miles north, just outside of the park. That wildfire has now more than quadrupled in size, blackening nearly 50,000 acres.
Right now, we're in a very aggressive firefight. I want people to know that. We're in full suppression mode. We're throwing everything we got at it.
Lightning, the cause of both blazes. More than 70 structures destroyed, more than 500 evacuees.
It has been a trying week for everyone. We had approximately 50 employees who were evacuated from the North Rim this last weekend, and the loss is devastating. We lost a lot of our employee housing for the National Park Service.
Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs saying the fire was initially managed as a controlled burn that then spread out of control. She's wondering how this happened, saying on X, Arizonans deserve answers for how this fire was allowed to decimate the Grand Canyon National Park. Also lost, an iconic piece of American history.
When the smoke cleared, it's just you look where the North Rim Lodge should be, and it was gone.
Originally built in 1928, the Grand Canyon Lodge was the only lodging on the North Rim, a haven for travelers drawn to the North Rim's serenity and beauty. The lodge, located at the end of the road, the first breathtaking views of the canyon from the lodge itself. Destroyed by fire in 1932, the lodge was rebuilt with original stonework in 1936, where it stood as a National Historic Landmark until last Saturday.
What does it mean that it's gone?
It is a very special place. It has a totally different feeling than even the South Rim. We kind of refer to it here as the hidden gem of Grand Canyon.
And as for those traveling hundreds of miles to get a glimpse of the epic canyon,
what's it like to see it just covered in smoke?
It's very depressing.
And all of this happening during peak visiting season. This time, 2023 saw about $1 billion in visitor revenue, visitor spending. And of course, park officials now telling me this will sting for the entirety of the region. Back to you.
All right, Steve, thank you.
All right, this morning, heavy rains once again threatening to bring more floods to central Texas. It comes as we have new details now about Camp Mystic's evacuation on the night that those devastating and deadly flash floods swept through Texas's hill country. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky is on the ground in Kerrville with the very latest.
Yeah, guys, good morning. And here we are now entering week 2 of this intensive search effort. And for the first time in days, authorities have confirmed that the number of missing has now dropped to 97 here in hard-hit Kerr County. In the meantime, we are learning new details about what happened and when that Guadalupe River exploded more than 20 miles upriver along the banks where those summer camps are located.
This morning, we're learning new details about the crucial moments catastrophic floodwaters quickly enveloped the beloved Camp Mystic. At 1:14 a.m. on July 4th, a family spokesman tells NBC News Dick Eastland, the owner of Camp Mystic, received a National Weather Service alert on his cell phone. The spokesman says Eastland then walked outside to assess the property and called other family members working at the camp on walkie-talkies. Adding between 2 and 2:30 a.m., staff members began moving campers to the Mystic Rec Hall, which campers tell us began taking on water. Eastland, who ran the camp since the 1980s, was last seen evacuating girls from the camp's Bubble-In cabin, where the youngest campers were staying. It's believed none of the girls in that cabin or Eastland survived. At least 27 campers and counselors at the camp were killed. Camp Mystic is situated by the South Fork of the Guadalupe River and Cypress Creek, with many of its cabins built in high-risk flood zones, according to First Street, a nonprofit climate research group. FEMA records show starting in 2013, Camp Mystic appealed to reduce the hazard level of at least 15 of the camp's buildings, which the agency granted. The camp's reasons for doing so, however, are still unclear. State lawmakers tell me that they're now looking for ways to better alert vulnerable areas, such as river cabins and summer camps.
I'm going to be requesting that some of the cell phone companies, work on putting towers in that area for future. I think that's going to make a big difference because we didn't have communication with a bunch of the camps.
So for many of these camps, the only way they have to communicate with authorities is cell service. And once that goes down, they're more or less cut off.
Yeah, and
following the tragic loss of life, there are now growing questions over who sent warnings and when. Officials say after-action reports are still coming. All of it as the desperate search for the missing now enters its second week.
And this morning back here in Kerrville, there will unfortunately be yet another cross added to this memorial along the river. Authorities confirming the body of Catherine Ferruso, the final missing counselor from Camp Mystic, has been found. We'll send it back to you.
Just another heartbreaking development there. Morgan, thank you.
Well, dozens of volunteers and nonprofits are working tirelessly to help these victims of these deadly floods. One of the groups on the ground is Team Rubicon. It's a veteran-led humanitarian organization that helps communities through disasters and crises. And we have the Vice President of Operations, Jeff Beyer, joining us now. Jeff, good morning. Thank you very much for making time to speak with us as your team is working on the ground. First, just tell us a little bit more about your organization.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having us. First and foremost, it's a great day to be a gray shirt. Team Rubicon, we're actually celebrating our 15 years of helping communities across the country and across the globe. And we're about 200,000 strong and ready to help communities, not just in Texas, but wherever the disasters may take us.
Can you give us a little bit more details about that, Jeff? So this is everything from clearing out roads to unmucking homes to long-term development and building. Give us a sense of the scale and the specifics of what your operation entails.
Yeah, we bring a lot of capabilities. We can help clear roads immediately after a disaster. And then what we're doing, focused on now here in Texas, is the expedited home repair, which is really focused on the disaster survivors and getting them back into a safe home. One of the things that we bring to communities, though, is compassion and empathy. We're part of the communities that we work in, so, we're here for the long haul.
I also just imagine we've been hearing a lot of people say that they did not have flood insurance, that they don't know how they're going to rebuild their homes. I imagine that your team's work is sort of easing that burden for people. Is that something you're hearing a lot about?
That is. We really focused on the uninsured or underinsured. And, it's not just here. We face people without flood insurance all across the country. And, everywhere can flood. People don't realize that, but that would be my message to everyone. You can flood wherever you live.
Jeff, I'd ask, in terms of just getting homes back up again, right? That's just the scale of that, the resources that are required, federal assistance, which can take a very long time to obtain. Can you help to sort of fill that stopgap in the meantime, or how are you helping folks on the ground? Like, what are they telling you their most urgent and immediate needs are right now in terms of your role?
Right. Well, a disaster of this magnitude, you can imagine the needs are tremendous, and they range from, food support to home support to just, some mental counseling support, as you can imagine. But, what we do is we make the home clean. We get the flooded material out so that the other killer that can come in is mold. And, it's hot in Texas, as you can imagine. So the sooner we can get the homes mucked out, the safer that home will be, and it furthers the disaster survivor down the road of recovery.
Oh, God, I imagine your gray shirts showing up as just like angels for people who you can help out in their homes quickly. How can people help if they are not on the ground, if they're not local?
Right. First and foremost, TeamRubiconUSA.org is a great way to help. Whether it's Team Rubicon or another trusted organization, fueling the mission, donating your time is great. Donating your treasures is great. And that's what it's going to take, because this is truly a marathon here in Texas.
Jeff Byard, thank you so much for your time this morning and the work you're doing. Pretty incredible.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Jeff. And again, I mean, it's cruel almost how the same area continues to get affected by the severe weather. Also, much of the Northeast Savannah getting a break right now from the rain, but flood watches still in place for parts of the Mid-Atlantic.
That's right. We have Angie Lastman here to track all that for us. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. And if you feel like it's been a busy July when it comes to flooding across the country, well, you're right. We've had nearly 2,000 reports of flooding across the country. Everywhere you see a blue dot is one of those reports. So just an incredibly busy month when it comes to the flooding concerns, the severe weather, and that's ongoing. As you guys just said, we still do have some of these flood watches and flood alerts in effect across specific pockets of the country. We saw really incredible rainfall yesterday in New York City, breaking the record for the highest rainfall rates in an hour from a non-tropical system. We had 2.07 inches in just 1 hour. So really incredible flooding across that region. We've seen the alerts expire in that spot, but notice we've still got some hanging around for parts of the Mid-Atlantic. We've got the parts of Texas under those alerts as well as we gear up for some more rain today. So here's what we're watching in the meantime. Some strong storms from the Rockies to the upper Midwest as a cold front is on the move. We'll see some heavy rain and, of course, you guessed it, flooding concerns from that. And then by tomorrow, more of the same, really, except we just shift that a little farther to the east. That front still working eastward and leaving us with the potential for some of those stronger storms along and ahead of it. We'll see the flood risk centered across the plains and the Northeast as we gear up for some additional rain there. Then we'll turn our attention to this area of low pressure that's sitting just offshore of the eastern coast of Florida. This is going to get its act together likely in the next couple of days. It's becoming a little better defined when it comes to the actual center of the low pressure. But the showers, the thunderstorms, they're still fairly unorganized when they're with the association of this. This is going to leave us with the potential, guys, to see some heavy rain over the next couple of days and maybe our next named storm. The next name would be Dexter. You can see the environment is pretty good there. Warm water in the Gulf of Mexico. So heavy rain on tap for our friends in Florida today, and then potentially seeing our next system here in the coming days.
Oof. We are approaching the height of hurricane
Yes, we are.
season here in the next few weeks. So
yep, good reminder for folks.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you. Well, now let's head to Washington, where the Supreme Court has handed President Trump a win on a key part of his agenda. The High Court is allowing the administration to move forward with plans for mass layoffs at the Department of Education that were previously blocked by a federal judge. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez joins us with these latest developments. Hey, Gabe, good morning.
Hey there, Savannah. Good morning. It is another major victory for President Trump at the Supreme Court, and the justices, in a 6-3 ruling along ideological lines, are allowing him to proceed with those mass firings at the Department of Education. As the president keeps reshaping the federal government, he's also trying to diffuse a separate revolt among some of his core supporters. This morning, major changes may be coming to the nation's school systems. The Supreme Court, in a 6-3 ruling, clearing the way for President Trump to overhaul the Department of Education after a lower court had blocked the layoffs of nearly 1,400 employees out of a workforce originally around 4,000. The president calling the court's decision a, quote, major victory to parents and students. The Department of Education oversees student loans, provides support for students with disabilities, and oversees civil rights investigations in schools. The president has argued education should be run by the states.
Send education back to the states. You're going to have to run your own education.
The National Education Association saying the White House's actions will, quote, hurt all students by sending class sizes soaring, cutting job training, and making higher education further out of reach, taking away special education services, and gutting student civil rights protections. The High Court handing a win to the president on one of his campaign promises, just as he faces an extraordinary rebellion among some of his supporters over another. The release of information related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, who killed himself while awaiting trial in 2019, triggering conspiracy theories. Trump supporting his Attorney General Pam Bondi after she said Epstein had not been murdered in jail and did not leave behind a client list. But key figures of the MAGA movement, who normally support the president, have been protesting the move for days.
The current DOJ under Pam Bondi is covering up crimes.
The president's daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, weighing in.
I do think that there needs to be more transparency on this, and I think that will happen.
Back to the upcoming education changes. 24 states and D.C. are now suing the Trump administration over nearly $7 billion in education funding that the administration has withheld a few weeks before the start of the new school year. Savannah.
All right, Gabe, thank you.
All right, another significant issue on the president's radar right now. President Trump is threatening Russia with 100% secondary tariffs if it fails to reach a peace deal with Ukraine over the next 50 days. That ultimatum coming after the U.S. agreed to sell Patriot missiles to European allies, which would then be passed on to Ukraine. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons joining us now from Moscow this morning with more. Keir, good to see you, and what can you tell us?
Hey, Sam, good morning to you. And we've had storm clouds over the Kremlin behind me there this morning as it responds to a report that President Trump and President Zelensky discussed long-range weapons hitting Moscow and Russia's St. Petersburg. That report in Britain's Financial Times, quoting, it says, two sources with knowledge of the conversations. We, of course, have reached out to the White House early this morning, have not heard back. But the Kremlin's response is interesting, Sam. It says often such rhetoric turns out to be fake, while saying President Trump's statements yesterday are very serious. As Russia struck Ukraine again overnight, President Trump and President Putin now locked in high-stakes brinkmanship.
I'm disappointed in President Putin because I thought we would have had a deal 2 months ago, but it doesn't seem to get there.
Trump threatening the Russian leader with financial penalties, but there's been no quick compromise from the Kremlin. Russia's former president, Dmitry Medvedev, calling it a theatrical ultimatum. The war unrelenting. In the last 24 hours, Ukraine says Russia launched around 5,500 attacks, claiming the Russian side lost more than 1,200 people. Overnight, Ukrainian President Zelensky thanking Trump for his support. Yesterday, Trump saying he thought he had a deal with Putin 4 times, only to be disappointed, describing his, quote, pleasant conversations.
I go home, I tell the First Lady, and I spoke to Vladimir today. We had a wonderful conversation. She said, oh, really? Another city was just hit.
The president now giving the Russian leader 50 days to back down or face secondary tariffs that would hit major economies trading with Putin's Russia, like China and India.
He fooled a lot of people. He didn't fool me, but what I do say is that at a certain point, ultimately talk doesn't talk. It's got to be action.
And Trump says Putin will face sophisticated weapons paid for by Europe for what has become an attritional war of drones and assassinations. Many in Moscow this morning just learning of the latest Trump-Putin standoff.
I don't care about Trump. I don't care about other countries. I live in Russia. I love Putin, so...
And the Kremlin this morning, Sam, saying that President Putin may decide to respond to President Trump's statements himself. A senior Russian official saying it may take some time to, quote, analyze the situation. No doubt, though, Sam, that the rhetoric is escalating. Sam?
Escalation is guaranteed here. Kira, thank you so much. For more on this, let's get to former ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor. Ambassador, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. What do you make of this move by President Trump that Kira was just describing to sell Patriot missile systems to European NATO allies, but for those countries to then pass them along to Ukraine? Why are these weapons being transferred indirectly? What do we take out of that? Is this a good deal for Ukraine?
I think it's a very good deal for Ukraine, Sam. I think this is a big deal. We're talking $10 billion. Some even the estimates go as high as $20 billion worth of weapons that come from Europe, that paid for by Europeans, manufactured by U.S. firms, some of which are already in Europe, so they can move quickly. And this is going to enable the Ukrainians to defend themselves. And ideally to push the Russians back. So this is a big deal and a big change and a welcome one as far as the Ukrainians are concerned.
Ambassador, we also heard there the president threatened to impose these 100% secondary tariffs on Russia. That would happen if Moscow doesn't reach this peace deal with Kyiv, specifically in the next 50 days. How do you see that playing out?
That's more difficult to predict, Savannah. I think that the 50 days is a bit long. It's a little bit farther in the future. It's also, as you say, it's secondary tariffs. So these are tariffs on nations like India and China who buy oil from Russia. Those are the secondary tariffs. They'll put some primary tariffs on Russia exports to the United States, 100%, but they don't send much to us. We don't buy much from the Russians. All to say that these economic measures are important and could be useful and are a strong signal to Putin, as well as actually the bill in the Senate. Senator Graham and Senator Rosenthal have a bill co-sponsored by 85 senators that would put 500% tariffs on. So they've got they're giving the president cover to do these kinds of tariffs. This is an anti-Russian, pro-Ukrainian sentiment that is very strong in the Senate.
It is interesting to pivot from President Trump, who was so confident initially, Ambassador, that he and he alone was going to be able to strike a deal with Vladimir Putin. But it's become clear over the last few weeks that he's finally become increasingly frustrated with the situation, frustrated with Putin. Why is he likely having this change of heart now? It's not as if anyone in the international community thought that Putin was a good faith actor in all this. What changed?
I think President Trump may have thought that Putin was a good faith actor in all this, despite all the evidence. And I think all the evidence was overwhelming. And President Trump has come to the conclusion that Putin is not a good faith actor, that Putin is not a friend, that Putin is the obstacle. So President Trump is, to his credit, put a lot of effort into resolving, ending this war. And he's concluded, finally, that Putin is the obstacle. And so President Trump has to take some measures to put pressure on Putin to come to the table.
A light bulb moment, perhaps. Ambassador Taylor, thank you so much. We appreciate that.
We have much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, the June inflation report comes out. We're going to have a check on the economy and what it all means for your wallet.
But up first, in Gaza, civilian deaths are rising as the ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas drag on. We're going to have the very latest from the ground next.
We are back with the latest in Gaza, where violence is continuing to escalate despite these ongoing ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas.
Yeah, more disheartening developments here. The director of field hospitals in Gaza telling NBC News that at least 78 people have been killed in the enclave since Monday. This as a senior Hamas official indicated to NBC that little progress is being made in talks for a potential ceasefire deal, saying, quote, no breakthrough is expected soon.
NBC News International correspondent Matt Bradley joins us from Tel Aviv with more on this. Matt, good morning. So last week, it looked more hopeful, right, that a ceasefire deal could be reached. What happened to change that? Where do things stand this morning?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer from my end is I don't know. And we've been talking with people who are close to these negotiations. And, you know, you're right that it did look as though last week that there was a real breakthrough. And I've been around the circle with these negotiations time and time again. And they often come to what looks like almost the end and then crash with disappointment. And that wasn't what it looked like was going to be happening last week, because it looked as though Hamas, the White House, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his top leadership were all pushing toward peace. Now, you're asking what changed. Well, it's an interesting question, because as far as I can tell and as far as what we've heard, the disagreement remains around very, very similar issues that we've seen really ever since the October 7th, 2023 Hamas attacks started this latest round of fighting. It looks as though Hamas and Israel, their main disagreement is on ending the fighting. Hamas insists that it will release all those remaining hostages as long as Israel withdraws from the Gaza Strip and ends its fight against Hamas completely, whereas the Israelis have said that that is unacceptable. They want all of those remaining hostages, but they are unwilling to end the fight until Hamas is completely destroyed. It's two positions that are not only entirely at odds with each other, but they're irreconcilable and have remained the same way almost entirely for the past several months. And it's one of the reasons why we're starting to feel that frustration setting in again.
Thank you for that reporting there.
And coming up, Sesame Street's Elmo is apparently the latest star victim caught up in a hacking scandal.
We're going to tell you what the hackers posted from his X account, all as PBS awaits a critical decision over funding for public TV. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back. We now have a closer look, Savannah, at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with Congressman James Comer's probe of former President Joe Biden's use of an auto pen. Now, Comer is facing questions himself after it was revealed that he used a digital signature on letters related to that very investigation.
NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has all the drama for us. Hey, Ryan, good morning.
Hey, Savannah and Sam, and here is where we start the day in politics. And Sam, you're right. Republicans in Congress are in the midst of an exhaustive investigation into former President Biden's use of an auto pen. The committee chair, James Comer, has said at the behest of President Trump that Biden allowing a system where he didn't physically sign his signature was an indication that he wasn't calling the shots. Well, an NBC analysis of Chair Comer's correspondence with targets of his investigation reveals he, too, used a digital signature on every letter he sent. Comer's team argues he physically signs subpoenas, which they say are a legal document. President Trump told the New York Times that he signed off on everything in his administration where an auto pen was used. Elsewhere, in New York City, former Governor Andrew Cuomo is not done yet. Despite losing the Democratic primary to upstart Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, Cuomo announced yesterday he will continue to compete in the general election as an independent candidate. The decision by Cuomo to continue on in the race sets up a four-way general election with Mamdani, the incumbent mayor Eric Adams, and Republican Curtis Sliwa. Several prominent Democratic leaders in New York have yet to endorse in the race. And voters will go to the polls in Arizona today to pick a Democratic candidate to replace the late Raul Grijalva. And there's one candidate who's gaining momentum by seizing on the generational change argument. 25-year-old Deja Fox is hoping to leverage her 400,000 TikTok followers in the race against Grijalva's daughter, Adelia. But this may be a long shot. The younger Grijalva has the backing of Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she is expected to win. But we'll see what happens when the returns come in. And that's a look at the day in politics. Guys, back to you.
Ryan, thank you so much for that. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Well, now let's get to that Elmo story that you're all waiting for over the weekend. The Sesame Street character's official account on X was taken over by an unknown hacker who posted a series of racist and anti-Semitic messages that were quickly deleted. But this comes as public media, right? This is from PBS, is already under scrutiny in Washington, with a Senate vote expected this week on whether to slash its federal funding. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona has the story.
Sesame Street scrambling to do damage control after Elmo's ex got hacked this weekend. The account of America's favorite furry red monster shocking its 500,000+ followers with a string of posts, not only making anti-Semitic and racist comments, but also a derogatory reference to President Trump in connection to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, according to the Associated Press. NBC News did not independently review the posts before they were deleted. Sesame Workshop, the nonprofit behind Elmo and Sesame Street, confirming to NBC News the account was hacked, calling the post, quote, disgusting, and adding they're working to restore full control of the account. Needless to say, the post's not on brand for the friendly Muppet.
It's very important to respect everybody.
Elmo going viral last year, inadvertently starting a mental health campaign when he tweeted, "How's everybody doing?"
And Elmo's glad that he got to talk to a lot of people.
Now, after the hack, Senator Mike Lee posting "I'm forever scarred" by Elmo. Words I never expected to utter. Democrat Representative Jared Moskowitz trying to turn attention to a different controversy facing public broadcaster, posting, "See what happens when you defund PBS?" The Senate is expected to vote this week on whether to take back $1.1 billion from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which funds both NPR and PBS. Trump demanding Republicans defund the Corporation for Public Broadcasting or risk losing his endorsement. The executive order pushing for the cuts said NPR and PBS provide biased and partisan news coverage. The heads of those organizations pushing back with NPR's chief executive, also emphasizing that people relying on independent local stations, especially in rural regions, will feel the impact immediately.
Good afternoon.
Senate Minority Leader Schumer threatening a shutdown if Republicans, quote, cave to the president's demands.
It is not okay. Ask the Republicans why they are heading on this path.
A path that's marked with uncertainty for the future of public media and support for projects like Sesame Street.
And our thanks to Mel Zanona for that report.
All right, outside of Washington, Savannah, a Utah paddleboarder who became trapped underneath a bridge was saved by a ranger who jumped into the river. The daring rescue was all caught on body cam footage. Alex Cabrera from our affiliate in Salt Lake City has the full story.
You can find a lot of peace and fun along the Provo River.
Yeah, it was just a day to hang out.
That's why Tiffany Wolf goes there.
We're like, well, yeah, paddleboarding sounds awesome and the river's cool.
But of all her memories floating the Provo, none compared to what happened 2 weekends ago.
And I don't know what I was caught on, but my foot was caught, not my tether.
Wolf was caught on something under this trestle bridge. She was trying to paddle to her daughter, who had just flipped into the water when the current pulled her to the far side of the bridge.
I'm just like, how am I stuck here? Like, I don't get it, and I can't get out of it.
Her daughter had made it to shore and called for help. That's when a Utah Department of Natural Resources ranger, who just happened to be nearby, ran into the water. This is video from Ranger Wyatt Manis's body camera. He took off his vest to get in. He reached Wolf and held her head above water.
I grabbed onto him like this, and I was like, for dear life.
Wolf was wearing a life vest, but the cold, fast-moving water was tiring. Ranger Manis stayed with her until more help came to free her.
Roughly about 30 minutes in 55-degree Fahrenheit water.
The DNR says Ranger Manis is a hero, jumping in without hesitation.
That's exactly what we train for every single day, the moments to help someone in need.
And for Wolf, that moment meant everything.
It was so selfless that I can't even believe that there are people that do that.
Yeah, training versus jumping into action, two very different things there.
Amazing.
Alice Cabrera, thank you.
Coming up, inflation update. June's report is out today.
That's right. We're going to dig into the latest gauge of the economy and tell you how far your money is going or not going at the grocery store when we come back.
We are back with some breaking economic data.
That's right. Inflation did rise by 0.3% month over month in June and 2.7% year over year. That's higher than last month's figure of 2.4%.
Here to take us through all this is Investopedia editor-in-chief, our friend Caleb Silver. Caleb, good morning. So walk us through what we're seeing here. And really the big question here is, are we starting to see the impact of these tariffs, or the back and forth, at least, of tariffs?
Not really. And I was looking at the categories that would be impacted. That would be apparel, and that would be new cars and trucks. Both very benign increases. In fact, new cars and trucks down 0.3% month over month, and apparel just up 0.4%. So those are the big import categories consumers might feel. We didn't feel it there. We had an increase in shelter prices and utility prices, but really we haven't felt the effects of these tariffs yet.
Well, that's a good segue then. So food, energy, and housing, usually the three most important markers. What are you seeing sort of across the board there?
Yeah, benign increases last month, but when you look year over year, you see those start to add up, which is why you see inflation higher than the Fed's target and higher than where people are comfortable with, because we can't get away from it. Shelter prices up 3.8% year over year. That's the rent we pay. That's that home affordability getting lower and lower. Medical care up 2.8% year over year. We know we're paying more for that, but this is not tariff related. This is just consumer prices rising, and motor vehicle insurance up 6.1%. Household furnishings, I did see an increase there, 3.3% year over year. Month to month, not very much, but when you look at the cumulative effect over the past year, we have seen a rise in prices there. But when you strip out the food and energy, where we spend a lot of our money, inflation still is up 2.9%, higher than what the Fed wants. But we have not seen the impact of tariffs or tariff threats yet on a broad base across most categories.
And the Fed meets in?
The Fed meets in 15 days, 7 hours, and 17 minutes, but they're not going to do anything, and we don't know if the Fed chair will have any power. Yeah, that's right here in my head. There's a 2% chance the Fed lowers rates at that next meeting. It could increase if we see other readings like a weak jobs report, but right now, inflation is just a little higher than the Fed likes it, but unemployment is employment's pretty robust, I should say. Probably no move in interest rates. That will definitely anger the president.
I was just going to say 2% chance it changes, 100%. That's
100% chance he's going to be very dissatisfied with it.
I would ask also the 2.7% year over year without the impact of tariffs. That feels like that is setting the groundwork for something that can be pretty impactful to a lot of consumers. What are you expecting?
Yeah, it is higher than we would like to see it, and it's higher than the Fed's target rate. But when you look at wage increases, those have been about 3.5%. So wage increases are outpacing inflation, and the cost of goods just keeps rising every year. The average inflation rate, more like 2.5, 2.7%. So we have not really felt it yet. People are feeling it on the day-to-day basis, but not in this report, certainly.
Bigger picture, what's this mean for the consumer right now?
Consumers should be happy that we haven't seen these major price increases, and we probably won't see them in the July report either. The tariffs go into effect August 1st. If they go into effect, look at that August inflation report. When we get to September, we'll see price increases then.
All right, you're the best, Caleb.
We'll be talking throughout the summer, one would imagine.
I'll be back.
You will have that running clock in your mind.
Never stops.
He always
never
does.
stops.
He always does.
Color me impressed.
I call it his magic trick. Thank you, Caleb.
Let's stay on your wallet right now with some other Wall Street headlines. Corporate workers over at Starbucks are weighing their options over a new in-office policy.
CNBC's Silvana Hanau has that and other money headlines. Hey, Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Sam. Good morning. Yeah, so Starbucks is requiring corporate workers to be in the office a minimum of 4 days a week, and that's starting in October. A memo from CEO Brian Niccol also says managers from Starbucks Support Center who are working remotely will have to relocate to Seattle or Toronto within a year. Now, the company is offering a one-time voluntary exit program with a cash payment. Brian Niccol has a stipulation in his contract allowing him to live in Southern California and commute to Starbucks headquarters on a corporate jet. Meanwhile, Microsoft is testing a describe image feature for PCs with Copilot Plus. So this new option, it will appear in a click-to-do menu, and it uses AI to generate a written description of an image, charge, or graph on the screen. Now, it's rolling out now to Windows insiders on certain Copilot Plus PCs. And Chipotle is bringing back its best-selling makeup product. Yeah, the Chipotle lip stain. So this avocado-inspired stain goes on green and then is wiped off to reveal smudge-proof rose color underneath. It's available on the Wonderskin website starting today for $29. The company's first launching that lip stain last July for National Avocado Day, and it was the fastest to ever sell out in Wonderskin's history, guys.
Okay, I know these are a big thing. I gotta say, I don't really get it. Like, the amount of time it takes and how crazy you look putting it on. It's like just put on a little lipstick or something. So I don't fully understand it, but I also don't understand why Chipotle needs to be in the game.
To be clear, it doesn't taste like Chipotle. It's just green.
It doesn't taste like guac. I mean,
Not my area of expertise, but I guess I can understand the debate.
You were lip staining this morning.
I know I was. You totally just revealed me. Whatever.
Just kidding.
Real men wear makeup. Thank you very much, Silvana. We appreciate that. Staying with business news right now, and as shoppers are worried, as we were talking about inflation, rising costs, there's one retailer that is still seeing more and more shoppers heading to its stores That would be the beloved Costco. Well, now the company is expanding, or I should say announcing an expansion, across the country. NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans brings us all the details.
Hey there, as Americans search for ways to make their dollars go farther, more people are spending more of their money at places offering big discounts, including Costco. The membership-based warehouse company is having a major moment, reporting an 8% sales growth for June as it expands across the country, hoping to reach more Americans. With family budgets stretched by rising consumer costs, Costco is expanding, a sign its big box business is booming. The membership-based warehouse store has gained popularity in recent years, building on a trusted brand for those keeping an eye on their spending.
The more people are paying attention to every dollar they're spending, the more attractive that membership is.
Costco is my favorite store.
A sign of the company's strength and success in this economy, the warehouse chain plans to open even more new stores in the U.S. in coming months, including locations in Florida, Texas, Washington, and Nevada.
If you're in Southwest Las Vegas, this is the new Costco opening here.
In Texas, where everything's bigger, the biggest Costco in the Lone Star State is now open for business in Midland. The store filled with eager shoppers searching for savings.
It's like, 12 o'clock on a Thursday and it's this busy?
It's nice to have a Costco nearby.
It's not just the price tags making Costco cool again. Items from its in-house brand Kirkland Signature often become fan favorites thanks to its high quality and low prices. The brand now accounting for roughly a third of Costco's revenue, bringing in $86 billion last year. Kirkland's Signature Marshmallow Crispy Cookie is just the latest sweet treat to go viral, with rave reviews flooding social media.
They had the genius idea to combine a sugar cookie with a Rice Krispie treat and create one epic cookie.
I think I'm about to go and give me another bite.
Of late, some of the store's offerings of items people love for less are coming under fire. Just this month, athletic apparel company Lululemon suing Costco, accusing it of selling knockoffs of some of Lululemon's signature products. Costco not responding to a request for comment. But some say nothing can put a damper on Costco's cult following.
What Costco's done really well is try to protect the value for their customer as much as possible. And I think they've earned a lot of trust from their customers.
That 8% rise in sales during the month of June was driven by the purchase of summer staples like candy, food, and cooler items. But a word of warning to consumers as we look to the fall. Economists predict that we're really going to feel the pinch of tariffs during back-to-school shopping. Those tariffs will affect clothing and textiles disproportionately, with shoppers facing 44% higher shoe prices and 40% higher apparel prices, at least in the short run. Back to you.
All right, bracing for impact on that. Thank you, Christine.
Coming up, you could say this next story is for the birds.
You could. We're taking you to a Florida town. There we go, where folks are welcoming our feathered friends. You can hear them.
Our director.
You're going to be surprised what
likes
kind
to
of
haunt
bird.
us with these noises.
We'll have more next. Welcome back. Now this is getting good. Are you ready for this?
I so am.
Are you?
Give it to him.
Find out. We end this hour with a town that some Floridians affectionately call New York City, y'all.
Can't take you saying that seriously. Ybor City in Tampa, that's where it is. It's a historic neighborhood famous for its feathered residents, here we go, that freely roam the streets. NBC News correspondent George Solis takes a look there for us.
In Tampa, Florida's historic Ybor City, you could say there's a pecking order when it comes to what makes people feel less than cooped up. Once the U.S. center of cigar manufacturing, Ybor City remains a neighborhood with a rich cultural history that now has folks flocking here. But it's Ybor City's fun and feathery mascots, its chickens, that have the masses saying makes this place truly charming. In art and effigy, chickens are everywhere.
I love it because it gives a little bit of that country vibe in the city.
Wild chickens are considered living memorials dating back to its founding in the 1880s when cigar workers from Cuba, Italy, and Spain brought chickens over. Today, there are hundreds strutting about the town and far from a simple tourist attraction. These chickens are seen as citizens with rights.
Would you stop traffic to let a chicken cross the road here?
Absolutely, I would. Absolutely.
The chickens are protected by a decades-old Tampa law that makes it illegal to hunt, kill, or hurt them in any way. Unfortunately, it still happens, and that's where people like Dylan Brees come in.
How many chickens have you helped?
Over the years, it's a lot at this point, especially if you count every chick that we've had to help out of a storm drain or over a curb. It's probably into the thousands.
In 2016, Brees founded the Ybor Chicken Society and later Ybor Misfits Micro Sanctuary and hatched a plan to build a community, now 30,000 strong, of people like himself, hoping to protect and preserve Ybor City's proud avian history.
They look both ways before they cross the street. They weather storms. They coexist.
Sky Puppy Brewing owner Danielle McKinnon knows all too well just how special that bond between bird and person can be.
Fell in love with one particular rooster. His name is Vander, and he was pretty beaten up on the outside of the building when I was walking up for work one day.
Danielle says Vander vanished before she could get help. But last year, on Valentine's Day, he reappeared, healed, but tragically passed this past December.
He was a special boy. It was a really deep bond. He could hear me. I could call his name, and he would just come running to me.
Vander, now honored on this bandana, proceeds of sales going towards helping save more chickens. Also helping, check out this poultry in motion.
They're just so integrated into the fabric of, this area.
Forget downward dog. This is chicken yoga.
I'm a city girl, so this is unusual for me to hold a chicken, and I'm loving it.
Release your arms if you like.
Hosted by a local hotel, rescued domesticated diaper-wearing chickens are allowed to freely roam amongst the yogis during sold-out classes, where I found it's perfectly fine to chicken out.
It's an amazing, sweet event that really showcases Ybor City.
After all, where else could this happen?
I've taken a lot of the seriousness out of it, and I just go with it. A good example of that, George, is when a chicken laid an egg during a class.
No way. Because in Ybor, it's chickens that truly rule the roost. George Solis, NBC News.
I don't know about the yoga.
What do you think it smells like in chicken yoga?
Not good.
Not good. By the way, I feel seen right now.
Yeah,
I lived in Miami for 5 years. The roosters are everywhere. Everywhere you go, you hear, what is that sound? It's a rooster.
There you go. I mean, but people like it. It's country in the city.
They demand more. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.